this type of filter that I oftentimes have when I grade on the regular, 10% scale of A, B, and C, because it assumes the best in people. And I think that's just the way that I have chosen to be a professor, to see the best in my students, but to give them feedback of how they can reshape or deepen their thinking in this idea.
Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Andrew Rimby, aka Andrew. Thank you so much for listening to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room podcasts. And before you hear today's episode, which I just know you're going to love, can you please do me a favor? And wherever you're listening, if it's Spotify or Apple, please rate and review us. Make sure you're following the podcast. Share it with friends, family, anyone you think would just love hearing this conversation. And you can watch our podcast on YouTube. Yes, we have a YouTube channel. It's called the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and you'll see the video episode. So please make sure you like the video you're watching and comment. I always respond to the comments. Also, we have a Patreon. So if you don't want any of the ads and you want bonus material, join our Patreon. There's a 1 week free trial. It's patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. And the free trial is for the professor level. Without further ado, here is today's exciting episode. Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Andrew Rimby, joined with Dr. Jan Balakian. We're after this known as Andrew and Jan. So we're back to our Teaching College English and Writing series. We're really excited because this is our first guest who teaches exclusively at a community college. And we have so many questions, so many just swirling ideas running through our minds. So we are so excited to be joined by Karen Galli, who teaches at Hudson County Community College since 2013, first 5 years as an adjunct, and is now an assistant professor and coordinator of English. Prior to that, she taught at St. Peter's University and other colleges like the City University of New York for over 15 years. So Karen has a lot of
Wow.
experience. She's taught composition, literature, humanities courses about culture. She's a current Doctor of Arts and Letters candidate in historical studies at Drew University, where an interdisciplinary approach to research is emphasized, and the humanities approach to doctoral studies has greatly influenced her own teaching style and pedagogy. So, welcome, Karen. I think we're very honored to have you here in our space.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Did you
So,
find, oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry. Did
No,
you
go,
find
Jan.
out from the NJCEA? How did you get notice the ad, the call for?
Yes, I'm on the newsletter and I saw the call and I thought it sounded really interesting. So I immediately emailed you.
Okay,
Oh,
great. I'm
good.
just always
Well, we
curious.
love the NJCEA. Quick shout out to the New Jersey College English Association, which I still think should be one of the largest organizations in New Jersey. So let's keep building it. I don't know. I have this theory that it should be like the Atlantic City Convention for high school or
Oh
K through
yes,
12 teachers. Like
yes, yes.
I hope that one day we have a really large convention. So, I guess in a way, this is part of that extension of that project. So, Karen, I mean, you have reading your bio and talking with you via email, you have so much experience in St. Peter's University, which is private, and then Hudson County Community College is a community college, and then you're now a doctorate student at a private university. So, like, I guess my first question is just have you noticed differences between teaching at a private university compared to a community college? And if so, what does that look like?
Yeah, actually, I did mention this, but I have taught at other private institutions in New York City, and I just loved teaching at the community college level. I
Mm,
think it has a lot to do with like my own experiences as a first gen college student, as a first gen American, and just like not really knowing what I was doing when I entered college, you know. Um, what I what I see with our students here is um, that deep, deep desire to just change their family's trajectory.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like really beautiful to see, right? Because students are so ambitious. They want to do well in school. They want to learn. But there's also this practical aspect of, what do I do next? And professor, can you guide me? Because I'm the first in my family to pursue higher ed, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's something that I love about being a part of this community, right? In the private institutions, it's been a little bit more of um, like almost like a negotiation of how much they need to learn to do well in this class, because it's a requirement. And
Mhm.
I know I recognize that it's just my one experience, but that's how it always felt to me when I was teaching
Hmm.
at private institutions.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's interesting because Jan only went to private universities and I only went to public universities for my training. So I've always had a lot of conversations. Jan was my undergrad mentor, and she would sometimes like say, I don't want to out you, Jan, but you would say like, how did you choose Kane University? Like you could have gone to,
Andrew could have made it at Harvard. So it was not to say anything negative about Kane. It's just that Andrew could have made it anywhere.
but in that same point, I think it's Karen, what you're saying is I started at the community college in Gloucester County. So I'm originally from South Jersey, but now I'm in Secaucus. So I'm like, I could like throw a stone and hit Hudson County Community College. I won't do that because that's defacing property. But so Kane, I feel like has that impact. Like when you talk about students who strive for whether they're first generation, whether it's just the demographic is so mixed. Like I just remember the social class of students is so mixed at Kane.
Hmm.
And when I took a PhD seminar at Columbia University, the major demographic was upper middle class. And I do feel like there was more well, what are you going to teach us? Like almost testing the professor
Right?
and questioning their authority at a private and an Ivy League. And I mean, I teach at Seton Hall, so I'm not like saying anything negative, but I do think that you're right. That quest for knowledge, even at the community college, I just remember adult learners, and I thought it was incredible. They're like in a Gothic literature class, and they're just so excited, like going to the
Hmm.
library, and they just wanted to keep reading and reading. And you don't always see that with those who come right from high school and their parents are paying 70,000 a year. There's not always that quest. It's like, well, what grade am I going to get? Like, I have to take this class. So
Yeah.
what's next? But is that kind of what you're saying, Karen? Like that type of observation?
Yeah, it's exactly what I'm saying. I also went to private undergrad, private grad, and then of course my doctoral program too. And I used to sit in the classroom and see my classmates like pushing my professors to like make exceptions for them to do
Mm.
work differently. Right.
Mm,
And of course, like on the doctoral level, it makes sense, right? Like everything is self-initiated and driven, but I was not expecting that like in undergrad. And so I would look around the room and wonder, what was my deficiency? Like, how did I end up in this room and
mm,
not be able to negotiate the way that my classmates were? And I kind of always felt a little bit out of place because of that. But I also understood that like I was afforded this great opportunity to go to these great schools, and that there was something that I was going to get here with these great writers who are going to teach me about the craft,
Hmm.
but also a very practical aspect of being a child of immigrants that like I had to get a great job when I finished school.
mm,
And I kind of felt like they were two contradictory forces pulling me. And when I look at my students here, most of them are on the path of, I have to transfer to a four-year school or to obtain a great job after, my degree.
So what's that like then, being in the being a coordinator of English at Hudson County Community College? Because I would assume that if you're saying these transferable skills or, well, I need to get a job, right? English is usually the department or just any humanities, maybe philosophy more so. But what am I going to do with this degree? Like, is that something that your students that you have to navigate as the coordinator? Do they ask you that question a lot?
Oh, yes. They say things like, I don't understand. How come they took them 4 pages to get this one idea across? Why can't I just write an essay in the 5 paragraph format? I just
Hmm.
want to answer the question that you're
Mm,
asking me. And I try to reiterate this idea that writing is to explore what you're thinking, right? As lovely as it is to think that we have opinions immediately, I think there's so much more beneath the surface that we have to bring to the discussion we're having with ourselves, but in writing, right? And um, I do have many students who resist that. And so it becomes this like, how do I help the students see that writing is a way for them to exercise their brain, their thinking,
Hmm.
their process for everything that they do, right? I know like some universities or colleges, they have composition that's focused on like literature, right? Or on research. Ours, and I coordinate College Comp too, is focused on the research process.
mm,
And but prior to here, I had taught at places where we focused on literature. And so it was a shift for me to think about giving up, right? Giving up that literary aspect of teaching students how to think through, scenarios, choices, characters, right? And time periods. Because I think it brings them back to wondering, to asking questions about people and their choices and why people do the things that they do that may be different from what I would do,
mm.
right?
Yes.
I do have a lot of students, and we have a pretty famous culinary school at Hudson,
Oh,
and
very cool.
so my culinary students are like, "Oh, I don't want to. Why do I need to write? I'm just going to be cooking." And so, like, I try to find that space that is interesting for them. So I'll have them write a recipe review or,
Cool.
go to a restaurant that they love and tell me why it's so great. And then I think some of them are like, oh, you're right. I do need to learn how to write well.
Mm.
It's going to like bring me
Do
to
you
even more
have them
success.
read Anthony Bourdain's book?
I have not,
Mm.
but
I bet they
I
would like it. I bet they would totally like it.
Yeah. Well, I love though, Karen, that you're meeting them in their industrial career. And it kind of reminds me, I teach writing at Montclair, and like the writing two students do an ethnography project, and they have to like go to a downtown or some kind of food scene, and they need to like spend at least, I think it's 10 hours, but they need to spend at least 10 hours in a site. So like whether that's at
Wow.
different cafes, and they have to like explain the differences between each of those environments, like observational
Very
writing.
cool.
Yeah, very observation based. And I like have even taken my students, I did an interview scavenger hunt where I took them to the library, and they had to compete as teams to ask random students and faculty questions in the library to like break down that barrier of interviewing. And like it does seem, whether when you do activities like that, and I'm sure that your students really appreciate that you're taking the time to think about the act of writing and the way it relates to their future career. Instead of just saying like, well, you got to learn a rhetorical analysis and this is what you have to read.
Mm-hmm.
And not thinking about the impact. Like, you know, I mean, do you feel that there's some faculty I definitely think get annoyed that they have to defend the profession? But like, do you see it as defending the profession, or do you feel like you've kind of just shifted into a different mode of teaching? Like, it's not really like you defending writing or English. Now that the fall season is here, you may be wondering, okay, I had all of these beach reads, Andrew, but now I don't know what books to read for the fall. Well, guess what? My friends at the Gay and Lesbian Review magazine have you covered. Their new September and October issue, called Forgotten Histories, features wonderful book recommendations, TV shows, and films that help excavate LGBTQ history. So, whether you're interested in learning more about the connection between shopping and the gay community, which, you know, I have a Home Goods and Marshalls addiction, as my fiance knows, they got you covered there. They have an article about the attraction of Confederate gentlemen by the incredible writer Andrew Holleran. There's an article about the French evolution of sexual identities and even the first LGBT riot, which happened in 1953. Go over to glreview.org. You can get either a digital subscription or a print subscription. I love my print subscription, which I'm holding up right here. And with the exclusive code ITBR Choice, you will get a free issue with your subscription. So ITBR Choice, put that in the promo code section and get your hands on the Gay and Lesbian Review print or digital subscription. I know you're going to love their magazine.
I think there have been times in my career where I felt like I had to justify why I was doing or making the choices for my students, for particular assignments. Um, and especially when I'm around STEM people,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this, like there's a little target like on my arm, and they're just like they just make that sometimes I get comments that just assume that writing is easy and that anyone can do
Oh, oh,
it.
So how
yeah.
do you
I mean, it's
navigate that,
so hard.
Karen?
Well, um, I this perhaps isn't the best way to address it, right? But I oftentimes say to my colleagues in STEM who I love dearly, right? That I say to them, just like you went to grad school and you are an expert in chemistry or in biology or physics,
Mhm.
um, I too have spent a lot of time studying writing about,
Yeah.
rhetoric, about like literature, and that there is more to just like it being an everyday task that everyone can just do it, right? Um, I don't know, maybe that's too subtle. I don't know.
No, I mean, I feel like I keep having these conversations. I don't know if it's because the conversations with Jan, Amina, like all our exciting guests, like, you know, you and others on the show have made me really think about having expertise in the humanities. But I do feel that a lot of the general public, it's going to make me sound like a curmudgeon, but they don't treat humanities experts as experts. And we are experts. Like, I'm an expert in narrative. I'm an expert, like Jan's an expert in narrative. She's an expert in literary genres. You're an expert, Karen, in that. We're all experts in composition. But why do you think that it's going to sound like I'm just griping, but do you feel that students question us more than they would question, say, the chemistry professor or
Mm,
the physics professor? Like, is it because we're such a Socratic, discussion
mm,
based
mm.
study that they think, oh, that means that I'm allowed to just critique the
I
professor?
I love that question because if you're a professor who really cares about learning, there's going to be socialized aspects of teaching and students like talking to each other in the classroom, which I think sometimes students, they don't always know what our learning outcomes are for the day,
Mhm.
right? So they're sitting in the classroom and they're thinking, oh, Professor Galli is saying I should just turn to my partner and start talking. And then on the observation, sometimes it's she had us talk to each other all the time. It wasn't very helpful, right? I mean,
I
I've
wonder
actually
about that
gotten
a
that.
lot. I
Yeah.
wonder about that a lot.
Um, but like that type of learning is what um is a big part of like progressive education, right? That we can't just tell them what to do and expect them to just give it back to us, but give them space to learn from each other and to question ideas and to like ask questions. Um, I find that when I just remind myself that I am an expert and I know what I'm doing and I have a reason for doing this, right? Um, I just kind of forget about all the little naysayers and the questioning around me. Um, something that I grappled with, and I still grapple with it a little bit right now, is I look 20 years younger than I actually am. And so I have felt my entire career I've
Enjoy.
had to, you
Mhm.
know, say, well, I'm a doctoral student, or I went to this school and that school, and or I started teaching in 1997. Like, and I think like when I hit 50, I finally stopped saying it every time I started a class. But part of it is um, perhaps the expectation that when you walk into a composition classroom, if it is not all serious with discussion questions and you submit it, then it's not a serious class.
Mm,
Wait,
mm.
say the last part again. If it's discussion, it's not considered serious, or did you say something else?
Oh, that if like I don't assign discussion questions that must be answered in a certain way and
Yeah.
submit it as homework, then it's not a serious class, or I don't have to read this because the
Oh.
professor isn't going to test me on it,
Mm.
right?
The
Mhm.
testing
And
outcomes. Yes, we've
yeah, and I
become
feel like that
so
all,
testing geared and canvas grading geared.
Yeah.
But I was gonna bring up, like, it's interesting that you, and I know Amina wants to ask a question. I just feel like on this line of thinking, it's something that Jan and I, we don't debate. Jan, like Jan and I don't fight, but we only have respectful discussions. But it's something where Jan always says, like, don't call me doctor. But it's interesting. On the first day of
I
my classes, I say, I want to let you all know a little about me.
Yeah.
I'm a queer scholar. I got my PhD at Stony Brook in 2023. Like, I'm very clear on, I
Right,
also have a
right.
podcast. Like, I put all my credentials out there. But
I
then
think
I
that's
say,
good.
like, call me either Professor,
But keep
Dr.
in mind,
Rimby, or
you're
Mr.
young. You're young, So I think it's good that you do that when you're young. That's good.
Well, I think some of it too is, I mean, you know, as a first generation student, Karen, like I'm not a first generation student and I'm not a person of color, I am gay, but that aside, I do feel like you being a first generation student, do you bring that experience up in teaching moments because of having a demographic of students who probably come from a household of multiple languages and probably really diverse experiences, or recently immigrated to the Jersey City area or North Jersey area?
oh my gosh, I have this script I guess I wrote a long, long time ago that on the first day of class, after we go over the syllabus, I just give them the whole story. I tell them my freshman year of college, I was put on probation because I was completely unprepared for being at a university.
Hmm.
And I tell them about my 3 times I changed my major, about transferring schools, being
It's
on the
good.
7-year plan. And I think that like it helps bridge some type of like separation between myself and my students, um, because I don't think they've ever had a professor who was just so honest about their own hurdles and their,
Mm.
it felt like defeats at the time, and like wondering how am I going to ever get back on track for college. And I think they appreciate that. I think it
Sure.
wins some type of respect, yeah,
Yeah,
from them.
it's almost like anecdotal pedagogy. I don't know if there's a word for it, but I do think that's important. I
I
really
do. Biographical, yeah.
biographical teaching. Yes, yes. And like Jan, do you do that? I mean, I do feel like you've done that when it comes
Mm,
to like if you were writing a play and submitting it and getting rejected and then how you had to work
yeah,
through
I
them.
like to talk about defeats and how they are learning experiences for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And so is there something that you feel has been, I mean, the biggest hurdle could be a tough question, but just something that currently you're navigating as you head into this new semester, Karen, with your teaching?
AI.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
but I've been having these interesting conversations with colleagues, right? Because I mean, I've ridden the waves of when everyone got a cell phone, right? When people laptops to class.
Yep.
And I just see so clearly that yes, it's been a problem, right? But I also can't just ignore it. And I think that many people are choosing to just push it aside and focus like nothing has disrupted their content and their way of teaching.
Mm.
And I don't think that everyone has to be on board about thinking about how AI can help a student become a better writer. But from a professional standpoint, I have to understand what's going on. Because how can I be a great professor if I don't understand what is happening outside of my classroom? And I feel like that is, I mean, I think I figured out a way to talk about it with my students and to create assignments and lessons that like bring more interest to the table, that take them away from the traditional assignment. But I'm having more of these conversations in faculty meetings with my coworkers, and we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out how do we cohesively move forward. That's what I'm
Well,
thinking about.
yeah.
Do you run student papers through AI? I am embarrassed to say I don't know how to do this to check how much they've taken.
Yeah, we have Turnitin integrated into our
Yeah.
Canvas.
I
Yep.
somehow, I don't know about the rest of you, but I have turned it in on Canvas, and when I read the paper, it sounds borrowed, and yet Turnitin doesn't label it as such. So I don't know. Maybe I should work
Well,
with Andrew or someone on
these
this one.
AI transcription software tools are not doing very well. They're
No.
not foolproof, and some are even saying don't even use it because I do still think that I don't know if you agree, Karen, but I still think that when I grade essays, I go through so many revision process, or I like to put up students' essays as examples on the screen, and then we actually annotate it in class because
Yeah, that's
then
how we did it.
it
Yeah.
teaches the students like, oh, he knows my voice. The class knows my
Oh,
voice. If I now use AI, clearly it's going to come through that this doesn't sound like my writing voice. And like at least you've gone through revision stages of like seeing their thesis. Like I mean, I do think I've heard that AI is being used more if you just say, okay, hand in your essay on this date and I'm never going to look at it until that date. Then I think they're just so anxious that they're going to probably turn to it because they don't know where to start. Maybe.
Right.
I don't know if I'm
I
in the
don't
right vicinity.
um uh, that raised an issue, a problematic issue in class. This is not actually AI related, but when we put a student's essay up on the screen, and I was following the protocol that the writer doesn't speak while students are responding to a set of criteria. The student was so angry at me for not being able to speak in class, and she felt that one particular student was meanly critical, and that's a moment that I did not know how to handle. She cornered me in the hallway when we had our break, and she said that she felt humiliated, and how dare I not allow her to speak, which is how I was instructed long, long ago to conduct a workshop. So I don't know if you want to move the conversation from AI to workshopping and how to deal with a student who's humiliated by the criticism of another student.
Yeah, I mean, Karen, like, how do you handle, I don't want to say a problem student, but someone who questions your pedagogy? Like, how do we try to ease that tension?
Or is it that she just felt, yeah, I guess it is pedagogy. She just felt that I should have jumped in to defend her. Yeah.
I think that like so many of my students aren't grammatically or mechanically perfect writers. And I remember a colleague of mine who I respect so dearly, and he just happens to always have ESL graduates in his class,
Hmm.
right? And he said to me one day, like, you have to democratize writing. You have to let them have their own voices, the way that they use language. And yes, sometimes it's far off, but if it doesn't impede what your understanding is, then you can give them general feedback, but let them know it's a process, right? And at that point, I had already been teaching like 20 years. And all of a sudden, it just like clicked for me that I need to start doing that in my classroom,
Hmm.
that I need to start sharing with my students that we're all in different places. We all communicate differently. Um, if I can understand your idea, I am a satisfied professor,
Yes,
right? Like if I understand what
absolutely.
you're trying to tell me and like you're really telling me what you think, you're not just repeating what you think I want to hear, then I'm so happy. Um, I have had workshops where um, that type of feedback where a student may have gotten harsh feedback from their peers. I just jump in and I try to just spin it a little bit because I don't want my student to feel defeated. I don't want them to walk away like hating each other. I'm a very community-based professor where it's important to me that they get along and they can function as a community. And so I always try to find a way to kind of smoothen out the smoothen out
Mhm.
the
Hmm.
discussion.
Hmm. Do you, is it okay if we go like another 10 minutes, Karen?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Oh, okay, okay.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure. Um, Something I'm curious about is, do you think that I even when I ask this, I don't even know if we can we can try to categorize it, but do you feel that when you're teaching either in the community college space or teaching in the private university or even a state university, right? A 4-year college, do you feel that the students are more or less willing to be held accountable? Like, are they okay with criticism? Are they okay with, I've been having a lot of conversations recently that I'm just noticing maybe it's because of social media, maybe it's because everyone now thinks they have their opinion and their opinion is fact, which opinions aren't facts, but just to say that. Do you feel like the community college space, they're actually more collaborative and more willing to engage? than the private university, or is that,
I I think
yeah.
for the most part, yes, right? Because like what I think what we do at the community college level is a little bit different from a four-year school in that um, we are constantly being like mothers and aunties and older
Mhm,
sisters to our students
mhm,
to help them understand resources. And inevitably, like there's relationship building in those acts, right?
mhm,
And so um, at the core of my teaching is how do I build a relationship with every student in my class? And
mhm.
I'm very fortunate. My classes are very small because it just happens to be that the sections that I teach are small. And I get to spend time with every student at almost every class, right? And so if we have that trust, really like earnestly conveyed to them that the feedback I'm giving them is to help them to become a better critical thinker, to help them write that better research paper in their other class. I found them to be incredibly receptive. And I feel like that's my proudest moment that a student can say to me, "Wow, I can see what you're saying. Like, do you think this would work instead?" Right?
Building that trust. And it sounds like you really build that community of care in the classroom, like that bell hooks idea of like a community of caring, which I just think bell hooks is, like, in my opinion, one of the best pedagogy
Yeah.
experts. um and yeah, and I think maybe it just comes back to what you said, which is you're also, it sounds like you're teaching them how to be a student. Like you're teaching them the ethics of a student. And there's a lot, I'm sure, like you get students who probably reach out to you like years from when you've had them. Like, have you had
I
that
do.
experience where you've like helped them into a career or like really just guided them in their future? Now that the college semester has begun, you know that there are so many books that I can't wait to recommend to you all. Well, my favorite independent publisher, Broadview Press, has some incredible books that have just come out. One of them I'm actually using in my writing course. It's called Writing on Fire, a fierce yet friendly guide to writing humanities essays in college by Rachel Tukolsky. It is such an accessible and interesting book that includes writing exercises for your students. I highly recommend it. Another book that you should get your hands on, especially if you are a writing or English professor, is Academic Writing Now by David Starkey. It includes wonderful, popular essays, nonfiction essays that you can use in your classroom, and they cover a wide range of genres. I cannot wait to use them in my courses. And another book just in time for the Halloween season is Vampire Literature and Anthology, co-edited by Robin Werner and Elizabeth Lewis. I had both of them on the podcast, so listen to that episode because you're going to love all of the vampire literature we talk about. Use my exclusive promo code, go to broadviewpress.com and use the code Ivory Tower for 20% off your order. Yes, 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Are you a fan of classic Hollywood movies?
Are you a fan of queer cinema?
Then do we have the podcast for you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christian Garcia,
And I'm Luke Del Mar.
and we are your hosts of That Old Gay Classic Cinema, where we take a look at some of the greatest films of all time and analyze them through a queer theoretical lens.
Let's be honest. LGBTQIA plus people have been a part of Hollywood since its inception, and this podcast celebrates those artists and entertainers of yesteryear while also taking a closer look at the queer-coded characters and stories in classic Hollywood films long before queer representation entered the mainstream.
So follow us down the road of classic cinema as we give you a guide to some of the films that touched our hearts brains, and even gave us courage to be ourselves.
You can listen to That Old Gay Classic Cinema wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
All right, listeners, we're ready for our close-up.
Yeah, there's like nothing more wonderful than getting a LinkedIn invitation to a student and I recognize the name and then I look at their profile, like, oh my gosh, they were a student of mine like 15 years ago or 10 years ago. Yeah, it's really
Is there
nice.
a critical thinking strategy that you were referring to a moment ago that you felt was successful, especially when you were working with a student, like it helped turn on a light for them or crack open a new window?
I- It's really basic, right?
That's
But
always the most important.
just like having a really simple conversation that begins with the question, what do you think?
Mm,
And I think that like, earlier we talked about private institutions versus public institutions. I remember my private university students were very ready. They were ready to tell me what they think.
mhm.
At the community college level, it's like the first time they're being asked, like,
Hmm,
what do you think? And
that's hard to believe.
well, I think that it's compartmentalized. That like I can tell you what I think through a narrative, through my own personal story,
Hmm.
and I can write in my opinion. But when I say to them things like, hey, you've read these three articles in our class, you've like become well versed in this. Now, what do you think about this?
Mm,
And there's like, I can see the visible like discomfort of expressing their thinking.
mm.
And I think it's because it's the first time they're
Hmm.
really being asked to like give me something new, something that is from your brain.
And you're giving them educational agency, which they might not have been given permission in their schooling before that of like, no, you have knowledge and your knowledge is important,
Hmm.
which I mean might come back to a class discussion too. Um, right? Like certain school districts, even I'm thinking in New Jersey, some school districts have much more freedom in the class of,
Sure.
or depending if they were in AP classes, where they get filtered into
Mm.
colleges. So I feel like I'm just learning, Karen. You have so much food for thought. I'm just so happy you're here because I think it's so important to hear from someone in a community college space
I
because,
think it's the future. Don't you think community college
well,
is the future
I think
of
it represents
America?
the. I
Future of
think community
America.
colleges, in my opinion, represent the democratization of American education. And sometimes I feel like the Ivy League is the Hollywood of universities. It's like
Yes,
the
yes.
token
Completely
people,
overrated.
they look a
Completely
certain
overrated.
way, they're very aesthetic, it really is. I think that community college is open to the people, which it should be. I think all colleges should be open to the people, but that's another tuition conversation. Um, so I think
Oh,
I can tell Amina wants to
go
ask a
for it,
question.
Amina.
So go for it, Amina.
I was cheering you on, Dr. Rimby. We don't believe in
Go,
gatekeeping
go.
education. I wanted to go back a little bit because you made this really great point about like flexibility in writing. Like if it doesn't impede understanding, then you have like a lot of freedom to express, or students have a lot of freedom to express their ideas in the way that is most comfortable for them while they're still navigating how to be good readers and good writers. And I feel like that type of flexibility, I don't know if I could ask you, like, do you feel like that type of flexibility is what throws off the STEM people? Because I feel like in STEM, everything is very rigid. And I feel like
Hmm.
when people think of the humanities, they think of like this wave of like you could really do whatever you want. And then you made this point, like, yeah, you kind of can. So it's like a two-part question. My first part is, do you feel like that openness and that flexibility does maybe add to the stigma around the humanities? And then the second part of my question is, so then how do we create structure and form in the humanities in a way that gets the discipline taken more seriously?
Mm.
I definitely think that this like so-called loose form is not the way that my colleagues in STEM like approach anything, right? So it's completely foreign to them. And that if there isn't structure, then it must not be real. That's scary,
Mm.
right? And I oftentimes have to go back and say, well, it's not the structure that we have our preconceived notions, right? But there's still an argument, there's still a claim here, there's still evidence-based support, and
Mhm.
these are the things that I'm looking for. Um, the I guess like example that I kind of steer them toward is just like when they would write a not business, a science report. There's a little bit of an abstract in the beginning of what their goal was, and what they found, and then their methods, right? And I say to them, well, that has a structure, right? Like it's a different type of structure, but you do tell me what the main finding is in the beginning.
Mhm.
Like that is in a way the claim of what you are writing as a student, right? I try not to go too deep into that because then they write science reports for me, or they say, in this essay, I will discuss.
Do you use
Like a
rubrics?
hypothesis. Yeah, they try to go as if the thesis is a hypothesis.
Oh,
I do use rubrics, Jen.
yeah.
Um,
Uh,
I I'm a culmination of like my interdisciplinary education in all different levels. In the last few years, I've moved toward labor-based grading,
mm,
and I have, of course, it's always like student first, right? But I have found that as the person who's giving the feedback, it has like made me less, I want to say the word is conscious, but like I'm more candid in giving really valuable feedback to them. I know that sounds really bad because I should always be giving valuable feedback, but it just it removes this type of filter that I oftentimes have when I grade on the regular, 10% scale of A, B, and C, because it assumes the best in people. And I think that's just the way that I have chosen to be a professor, to see the best in my students, but to give them feedback of how they can reshape or deepen their thinking in this idea.
Do you think
mm.
they're all reading those comments? I wonder, as we're typing away in Canvas and they have two jobs and families, are they reading that stuff?
I'm reading it. I'll just
Well,
say,
you're one of the unusuals.
oh my goodness.
I would say probably most of them are not.
Mhm.
Um, a way that I sort of like build that into my class is, the first 10 minutes of class, but we're waiting for folks to join the call or to come into the classroom. I'll say, go look at the feedback that I just returned to you last night and just go ahead and write a reply to me.
Oh, that's a good way to do it.
Oh, that's smart. Because then
Mm,
it
Like
makes them
words
accountable.
getting back to the
yeah.
like the
They
old
do it
school
on
concept.
Canvas? On Canvas?
Wait, you do this on Canvas, Karen?
Yeah,
Like
I do it
your
on Canvas.
comments? Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yep.
feel like that's such a great idea because I found that I have a lot of students now who filter into class like the first 5 minutes that like I
Yeah.
can't even take attendance until after 10 minutes because it's just not
Oh,
worth
goodness.
like it's not worth like trying to mark people students
Right.
absence. So yeah, using it as workshop minutes, I love that. I'm gonna use that, Karen. I'm gonna have them
Great.
look over my feedback.
Yeah.
I think that that's really even putting them into groups and looking at each other's feedback too could be like getting them in that workshop mode. I think it creates such collaboration. And I love what you're saying about not focusing too much on a set of a metaphor, like this is just like this in the STEM field. Because sometimes I do that with poetry. I'll say
Mm,
poetry is a genre that's most rigid of like rules and following a pattern. And I usually, most of the science students really love poetry because it does have more of that system. But I
you could
just
actually say that about the structure of a play, the structure of a short story. You could, yeah.
sometimes, I mean, I feel like a lot of new short stories are very, um, everything's
Mhm.
breaking the rules, but
Yeah, 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 yeah.
or remember that play, Jan, we saw by Annie Baker?
Oh
That
my God.
definitely broke the rules.
Oh,
We
it
won't go
was
into that.
torture to live through. Yeah.
It was interesting. But yeah, Amina.
Oh, I wanted to like segue a little bit and ask you about the AI. I know you're probably sick of hearing about AI.
Oh no, we need
Um,
it.
I love that you said like don't ignore the disruption because like it's like the elephant in the room AI. So I guess my question is, what are you doing specifically
Mm,
to combat AI, especially in a writing, like, a writing intensive course, where it feels like it's more villainous, this AI monster, than,
yeah.
say in, like we're learning about a play or something. It's not really an interpretation type of thing. So like, is it the blue book? Is it the oral exam? How are you getting them to be, how are we preserving academic integrity in that way is my question.
Yeah. So I think it kind of goes back to why I think students are using AI, right? And I think it's because they don't know how to approach this assignment or
Mm,
they don't have the time, right? And I did have a semester of why are you using AI, right? To every paper that came in like that. And now I feel like I finally have found a method to approach it with my students.
mm,
Um, Building that trust. I mean, I know it sounds so like old, right? But like really solving a lot of my problems with that kindness and compassion has really worked for me, right? Because I do want to know that my students are trying and they like really want to be there. So establishing that trust and then just telling them that, I don't really want to read what AI thinks because AI is going to just tell me the things that I can already read in Wikipedia, right?
mm,
And so let me help you like in this like process of thinking, right? I'm like, I know we all know how to think, but let's just do this together, all right? And let's take steps together. I try to scaffold as much as I can in the classroom so that they have to do it with me. And sometimes I have an academic coach in the classroom so that we can organically create things, right? So that they have something with them when they're at home to complete their assignment. I would say out of 15 students, I would say like 13 are like, I've gotten them to think. The other two, I think they just need more time to like sit and like experience what it is to brainstorm. I just finished teaching summer one. I was a little bit surprised about how many students just didn't really understand what
Hmm.
brainstorming and outlining is.
mm.
Like, I mean, everyone thinks they know what it is, but when you look at their brainstorming,
Hmm.
it's not
What
brainstorming.
is it?
Mm, mm. But I love that you're
Um,
like making that clear, like you're making that transparent in your pedagogy, like explaining, well,
yeah,
this is what the brainstorming process is, and I'm going to model, like, let's model it together.
right. I think when teaching like Comp 1 and Comp 2, I always took it for granted that students knew how to brainstorm and organize. But
Hmm.
in my developmental English classes, I never took that for granted. We would write a paper together, we'd brainstorm together, we'd organize together. And oftentimes those students would leapfrog over all the developmental classes and go straight to Comp 1.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, wait a minute. Why am I not talking about this in my Comp 1 class?
Yeah.
Why do I assume that they know that they're thinking the way I'm thinking? And once I made that connection, it
Yes.
started to really change things.
Yes. Well, Karen, we could keep you
Forever.
we might have to have you back on as as the semester's going, because I feel like there's so much to ask. So is there any place, Karen, that, those listening, if they have questions, where to find you, whether it be a website, a profile on your university's platform?
Yeah, you can find me on our college website. I'm there. Yeah,
This was
I'm happy to
just,
talk.
Yeah.
I think we all learned so much from this. And everyone out there, I'm sure, even if your students are listening, it's exciting to hear where you're getting your ideas and like how you're approaching the classroom. So thank you so much, Karen. This was
Yeah, I
just
feel
such
like
a
we just hit
pleasure.
the iceberg, tip of
Yes.
the iceberg with you.
Yes. So definitely we'll have to have you back on to just continue feeding us food for thought.
Thanks, I'd love that.
Thank you
Thank
so much,
you. Have a
Karen.
great day, Karen. This was
Bye.
wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, Andrew, we should compile